Hello and welcome. Today on a different kind of video. The topic of today, as you already read in the title, is the existential crisis of Hell Let Loose. Let me explain. But first, let's all agree to be civil in the comment section and not start a comment war. No, nobody wants that, okay? Thanks. So let's begin. Not a lot of new players touch this game, and I kind of see why. They touch the game, but they're not staying around. Just one rushed update after another, and the neglectance of the community wishes just don't shine a bright light on the developers right now. And the community is pretty much divided. On the one side, we have the veteran players, which are mostly in like competitive clans, like they're in communities which play against each other. You can look at this that way, that the difference between comp matches and pub matches are that in comp matches both teams have highly experienced players which are all veterans and which understand the core gameplay and the mechanics of Hell Let Loose, and they try hard to win. Of course, you want to win your pub games, but I mean, there's not a tournament or status on the win, so you don't try hard as much. And on the other side, we have the casuals, pub players, who have only a few hours on the game. Like a few hours are for me like 50 hours, and then you just drop the game. You play it once per week, and you don't really grind it. That's the reason why I make this video. In every other game, the focus of the devs is to 99% on the highest skilled level of players, because when they have a balanced experience, then it's balanced for everybody. And now the Hell Let Loose devs never really cared about the high level gameplay and only watched the stats of the pub plays, which you can't really compare because pub players in every lobby, they're at least 60% under level, I don't know, 20, 30 or 50 even. They don't have the knowledge. They don't know how to properly push points or get stuff done. You can't really compare these stats, because when you let casuals play Ondriel, for example, it could be 6-4 for the Germans out of 10 games. In comp, when two exactly skilled teams play this map, the Axis wins every time because they have the better tanks, they have the better weapons. There is no chance for the allies to cap it or to win it. That's just not how it goes. So I hope you see the point. It's not balanced for the high level players. And that's just so frustrating, because we are the ones who stay around the longest. Because when you reach a certain point in the game, you will, or most players, I think like over 80%, go into communities and play then against other communities. So with that all in mind, I suggest, like we, the really good players with thousands of hours, get a separate Discord channel in Hell Let Loose, like on the official Hell Let Loose Discord, that we can discuss the meta properly and help the devs understand the problems of the game, because I'm 99% sure the devs don't really play their own game. Like otherwise the updates would look extremely different. Furthermore, we would surely pre-test some PTE stuff, because we understand the game at a core level and know what works and what not. And of course we would do this for free. We want the game to succeed. But as it is right now, most of the veteran players are getting more and more frustrated. And when they leave, then Hell Let Loose has no future. There is just none. A lot of servers, when you look at the server lists in Hell Let Loose, most are run by communities, by clans who play each other. And when they don't play the game anymore, then it's pretty much GG for Hell Let Loose. So we want Hell Let Loose to succeed. It's our favorite game, but it's with every update, it's getting more and more stall. There are so many broken promises and other stuff, it's baffling for us. So I hope you understand why it's so incredibly important to listen to the veteran players in this game. If you have, like, as I said before, 100 or even 200 hours, yeah, you understand the game, but you're not really good at it. Like, you need thousands of hours to really get the game. And if you look at every other game, it's pretty much always balanced for the best of the best. That's just how these games flourish, to keep the veterans entertained. And this brings me to my personal suggestions. I made the point clear with the Hell Let Loose official Discord, and I also did a whole video on weapon balancing already. You can watch it if you want. And I would suggest that we would get, like, the server owners get more freedom in the server settings to point out different points or lock the artillery completely or disable certain tanks, stuff like that, that makes it easier for the competitive community to arrange matches and stuff like that. This would be a huge upgrade. Furthermore, the admin can needs a complete overhaul because it on Twitch it's just not that enjoyable to watch. I brought 3 known figures of the comp community together to see what they change, and you can listen to the interviews now. Hello and welcome, guys. Thanks for joining today. I have a few questions for you. The first one, what exactly would you change in Hell Let Loose, and why would you change it for balancing stuff and other changes?
Hello, everybody. It's Gas here. When it comes to Hell Let Loose, there's just so many changes you can make. As you know yourself, the game has had many developers, all with their unique vision, and you can see, even in the maps itself, you can kind of feel that Mortain is different than all the other maps. And I feel like that kind of transitions into the gameplay loop, and it appears that all these developers don't really play their game, or they think it's fine the way it is, which it isn't. It could be a lot better. And I guess the main changes I would make would be to the vehicles, right? Something like the half track, for example, right? This thing costs 300 fuel. It's literally never used. And the purpose of this armored transport vehicle is to be hidden. That it's in itself doesn't make sense. It should be something that, it gives you cover, and then you can drive around wherever. It should cost like a lot less fuel. It actually should spawn in the main mid HQ or at the beginning of every game. So that's like one major thing that I think should be changed. And with the tanks, I would change the tanks so that, like, you can't just spam Panthers. There should be a limit on, for example, you can only spawn 3 Panthers or 3 Tigers in the match, just so that you see a bit more variety. Because when you play in like a competitive match, let's say a setting, these tanks, everybody just saves the fuel for the tanks because the half track is useless. You're not going to spend fuel on that. The jeeps are useless. You're never going to really be using them. So that's what I would do with the vehicles. Yeah, and as for the jeeps, I would obviously make them usable. Have one spawn in the mid HQ so people actually use this vehicle and lower the fuel cost of it.
Okay, a few nice infos. Would you change anything, for example, the filter stuff or on the sniper gameplay loop?
So the sniper gameplay loop, I would change the artillery gameplay loop if that's what you're talking about. To I think that if you want to play artillery, there should be a separate squad that you create an artillery squad, and only they can go on the artillery. And in order to do that, you need to have you either have 2 people on the artillery, or you have 1 person, but the reload time is longer. Because right now it's just way too powerful, I think, in my opinion. So these people complain about realism. This would literally never be happening in a war, right? Who would be running into artillery, right? You usually have in the real war, right? Artillery barrage for like 6 hours, and then you would run at the enemy. So I just don't like this at all. If anything, just to satisfy everybody else, I would just make the reload timer on the artillery a lot longer. Because right now you could just spam you can check the Archon. The Archon are like statistics for each match, and the artillery person just has like double or triple or even quadruple the score of the next infantry player, which I think is just ridiculous for just pressing F1 and F2 for an hour and 30 minutes. And as for the sniper hoop, I don't think it's that bad. Of course, the scopes in sniper rifles, they kind of look like Looney Tunes scopes. It feels like you're playing Borderlands 1 from like 2009 whenever you zoom into the scope. And the technology is there to make it like picture in picture and make it look nice. I don't know why it's not in the game. I guess for performance reasons, but it has to do with sniper guns. Also, a bit more variety and sniper rifles would be nice, but that's just asking for more content.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
when you look at Postscriptum right now, they release 20 guns per month. It's incredible, and we're stuck with the same snipers since 2 years, except the
yeah,
British ones.
there's a it feels like the developers when they think of content, I don't. They it's like a new map or a night version of a map. You know, you can't really have a night version of a map. It's just the same thing. You just bake the light differently, and then you have a cone of fog around you that spreads to like 30 meters, and you can't see anything. It's not good gameplay at all.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Okay, I think we have it. Or do you want anything else to add?
I guess talking about filters, I used to be like really lenient on filters, but I feel like the best approach to the filters would be something like Escape from Tarkov did, where basically the game itself has like a kind of filter tab in the game, so you can change it from there. Because let's face it, the color scheme and how it loose is not pretty. It could do with a little bit of a touch up. And then I guess the only thing I would change in like the actual gameplay loop, the most important part, would be like I don't think that OPs should wipe if you capture a zone, but the garrison should.
Ah, okay,
Also
very interesting.
remove the garrison spawning function of the half track and make it so that it's actually like a vehicle you see, driving around the map.
And what your thoughts on the voting situation?
Yeah, so when it comes to the whole movement situation in the game, it actually spreads a lot deeper. The way I see it is that like with each update, the player, us, we're like a functioning human, and with each update, the developers break one of our limbs. So with the vaulting change, because you basically used to be able, the way it worked is that you would get on top of the object, but now you jump over the object. And so what I think they did is they put us a functioning human, and they broke our legs and put us in a wheelchair. And and then when they and now like with the admin messages, you can't get them away from you. Also, you used to be able to press escape and redeploy and press the Y button to for yes or no. And they removed that as well. They also removed the functionality of looking at the map when you're bandaging. I feel like they put us in a wheelchair, now they're taking off the wheels of the wheelchair. I feel like they they should probably play their game a bit more or listen to the veterans, because these things, they were working perfectly fine and they were changed for no reason.
That's true. That's sad to see. Okay, thank you for your time.
It was a pleasure.
Now we'll talk with one of the most experienced players with roughly 4,000 hours and 5 years of competitive experience, Ninjapulver. Hello.
Hello.
So, you recently picked up the commander role for, I would say, the best team in the world, quote unquote. That's us.
Quote unquote. Yeah.
And what exactly would you change when you had the chance to the commander role, and why would you do it?
I think, I mean, one of the easiest ones would just be rebalancing of the abilities that you have, because I think they're not quite like the strafey run's way too overpriced. Like
Okay.
it's just, it's just not very useful unless you want to strafe arty, I guess.
Yeah.
Bombing run is just not very strong either. It feels like there's just too many things blocking it. So it's like something you might want to fix with that. But I think otherwise, unless you just want to add more, utility stuff for the commander in terms of abilities, I think some rebalancing would be fine in that area.
Is there anything else except the ability things that you want to change or would change?
I mean, most for public games, I think something that'd be really useful is the ability to assign different squads to different tasks. Because the devs added the ping feature back in update 5, I think it was, and like sure, that helps you communicate within your squad, even though it has its drawbacks. There's nothing like I wish the commander had a really easy way to designate different squads to different tasks. Like if you open your map right now, if you click on a squad, they get highlighted in green. I think if you could just have that, and then you could like put markers down on the map, like if you say you click on EC squad, and then you put down a defense marker on the map, then that would kind of show up for that squad, like showing, oh, we should be defending over here. That's our task. And I think if there was just easier ways for the commander to communicate with the squad, instead of having it necessarily be through voice, because not every officer uses a microphone.
Yeah, and I mean, we all know the hassle when you have squad chat as a squad lead and the command chat. It's really
Yeah.
annoying. You can clearly overhear some calls.
Yeah, and I especially feel like if you're a new player, you just join a squad, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, he has an OP here. Oh, there's some gunfire over there. I'm gonna run there. It doesn't. I think you just get a bit lost. You don't really know what the point of the game is, and you might just quit the game. That's probably not that uncommon. You just not really sure what to do. Like you can probably understand the game and what the point is, and like, but it's like, where do I go? Like you don't know the maps, you know.
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
playing as people who know, like they're gonna be in positions and just destroy you. But if you had like, oh, our squad should be attacking this position, or we should hold over here. Like if you had like an arrow on the map, or maybe not like necessarily an arrow, but like something that's showing you, oh, it's in if you this direction, like there's this defense marker, and that's where your squad should be focusing. That would make it a lot easier for just the new or the average player to understand something that the commander wants, instead of it having to necessarily go through multiple stages and be reliant on an officer who is willing to do the job that the commander wants. And I also think that would add just the commander aspect of the commander role, because right now it's basically just spawn vehicles, throw a bombing run down here or there, and then complain when no one's on defense. That's about it. That's about what you do, I feel. So something like that would then actually turn the commander into a commander. And I think that's kind of lacking at the moment. And it's been lacking ever since the game came out.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a better Battlefield commander right now.
Yeah, a bit. Yeah. And they got rid of the commander role in Battlefield, so
That should say us something.
yeah.
Okay, I think that's it, right? Or do you want
Yeah,
anything
think
to add?
that's No, I think that's it.
Okay, perfect. Then thank you.
No problem.
Okay, last but not least, we will hear from one of the best tankers in Hell Let Loose, Nero. Welcome. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. The first big question, what would you change about the game or the tank gameplay right now with easy, small changes to balance it more or don't balance it more? Give me your
If we're
thoughts.
talking about right now, I'd like to just be the game in a more consistent state when it comes to tanking in general, because oftentimes you can find yourself bouncing with the AP from a medium or a heavy tank on the front or side plate of a light tank, which should never happen, because that's just basically completely unrealistic, especially with something like a Tiger or a 76 that you just bounce off a light tank. That should never happen, but that sadly happens too often, which kinda makes it unrewarding if you find a good position to take out an enemy light tank, or also basically makes the game kinda RNG, because you never know if you're gonna bounce or not. Sometimes it can happen with an AP on the recon tank as well, which also should never happen, because the recon tank should basically just be blown to pieces if you hit him with an AP. With an HE it never happens, which also doesn't really make sense in my opinion. So just some consistency. Not even the focus on more realistic approach, but the consistency of actually being able to kill tanks that you should be able to kill. And then also, for example, if you shoot a medium or a heavy tank at the same spot twice, basically, and then the second shot just bounces even though the enemy tank hasn't angled in a different way or drove over something that made him bounce weird up and down, so the shell ricochets. So yeah, just consistency in general. And then I also think what should happen as soon as possible to actually make these tanks viable is the rework or overhaul of the British tanks, because the Firefly doesn't have a driver's MG. I don't know if that's historical accurate, because I'm not like really interested in the historical accuracy of the tanks anyways, but it's just a debuff which shouldn't be there in my opinion, because not having a driver's MG actually is a huge deal in some situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you're angled sideways and then somebody's approaching you from the front, like you're getting swarmed by infantry while you're side peeking some angle or whatever. And then the biggest thing in my opinion with the British tanks is just the maneuverability. The turning radius of the Firefly is just a joke in my opinion. I don't know the exact timing obviously, but it takes forever. It's so slow, and it's not even a tight turn. It's like you're driving in a big radius, taking forever to actually even do a 180. So if you're getting surrounded by infantry or if you're getting flanked by an enemy tank or whatever, there is basically zero chance to properly react, and the chances of you then actually dying because of that are just super high in my opinion, which makes British tanks so unviable, not only in competitive but also in public. It feels so clunky and it feels so bad, and it's just not fun to play them. And then also driving in general, especially with the medium tanks. I can't speak for the British medium because I never play British because of the shit heavy tanks, like I said. But with the Sherman or with the Panzer IV, in my opinion. Just driving up can be a pain in the ass as well, because all these little dirt mounds and whatever not is placed around the map, especially on maps like SME or Du Mans or whatever, where you have to get over to actually get to the point on the opener. Like, no matter how hard you angle the tank, trying to get over them is just such a pain in the ass, because most times you're just stuck, and then you have to gear down all the way to first gear, or you lose all the traction and then also have to gear down, which loses a lot of time. It's frustrating, it feels clunky, and it hasn't been that way in the past, obviously. Like, you used to be able to drive over these things easily. I don't know why they changed it, I don't know how they changed it, I don't know if that was intended. But yeah, it just feels clunky driving the medium, because
Yeah.
it's just stuck on so much things.
For sure.
And then you're delayed and everything. And it's also RNG. Sometimes you just glide over, and sometimes you take the exact same approach on the exact same asset and you're just stuck. Or you lose all the traction, then you have to gear down, go over it in first gear, and it loses you like 10 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, I think maybe even more when you have to accelerate again.
Yeah.
That's just sad. Okay,
Yep.
so the next question would be, what would you like to see in the future? Like maybe in a year or something like that?
More tanks would be nice, bigger variety maybe, and maybe some actual thought out damage model. I think it was announced, I don't remember exactly which update it was, maybe 10, 11, 9, 10, something around that they wanted to overhaul the armor system or rework it over 2 updates, which hasn't really happened. I don't know what happened with that idea, but just having a thought out damage model, it may be close to what Squad Postscriptum or Squad 44, I think it's called now, has. Doesn't really need to be that in depth, but just something that makes it a bit more challenging, because basically now it's just you drive forward, you hit hull, and then you try and do that again, or you double tap or whatever. But it's not like the tanks don't have anything to them, like a fuel reserve, ammunition reserve, or whatever, you know. And adding something like that would make it more interesting, maybe would shift the meta, would make it more challenging, maybe even with the way you need to position yourself, depending on where the ammunition or where the fuel or whatever is stored in your tank. So something like that, maybe something thought out that kinda makes the tanks a bit different from each other. But I also know what happens when Hell Loose gets updates.
Yeah.
And I also
We
know
all
if
do.
new stuff gets implemented, what can happen. So the devs touching something like that could end very badly for tanking. So I'm not sure if that is something I would trust them to implement successfully, if I
Yeah.
can say it that way. But yeah, something like that would actually make it cool. But also maybe it would be then too roleplay-like, because this game is not Postscriptum, this game is not Squad, this game is not War Thunder. It's too arcadey. Like, it has tactical aspects, as we all know, because we're playing comp, and you have to prepare and you have to do strats and whatever. But at the end of the day, it's more like an arcadey shooter, like a Battlefield with
Yeah.
a bit more depth to it, and not something as in-depth like Postscriptum, Squad, maybe even War Thunder. So I don't know if it would be fitting for this game.
Okay. Anything else to add?
Other than that, I think it's fine as it is. It's kind of boring from time to time, because it's always the same approach you have to take. And the meta hasn't changed in forever. It just evolved because people got better at the game. But how the game is played now,
Yeah, I think we're
It
in
has
a
been
complete
played for
stall.
yeah, it has been played for years. Basically, when they implemented the bush change, where they added all the dirt mounts inside the bushes, so you were not able to shoot AP or HE through them anymore. That's basically the last change in tanking, I think, that we've seen from a developer side. Because basically the same way you play now, you could have played once Update 9 was released and the bushes were changed. Just people had to adapt, and it took some time for everybody to get onto the train on how to actually peek and double tap and whatever. But yeah, like, nothing's changing basically. The only thing that kinda switched up tanking a bit in a way that you had to be a bit more careful maybe was when they buffed the AT guns, that they, I think, were able to two-shot a heavy tank.
Yeah, that was
If I
insane.
remember correctly. Yeah, but I mean, it was a very, very, how do you say it in a nice way? It was not
A thought out
very
change.
thought out, yeah. It was not very thought out, you can say it that way, because it just was too strong. AT guns were just too strong, so you just had to be more aware than you have to be now of everything around you. AT guns got spammed way more as well. It was just a bit more dangerous, so you just had to play a bit more laid back, because you got punished easier and harder, especially with the slow reload time of the AT gun. But other than that, I think nothing has changed in years, and I assume nothing will change when it comes to tanking in the future, unless they maybe revert the bush changes. But then again, it would just get more and more boring, even because then you just sit back outside of soft cap
Yeah,
on the
you will
exact
be
same 5
forced.
spots on every map. Then it's basically like foil, but on every map, and you just sit back out of render distance, maybe even wait for pings, wait for tank marks, and then just take the shot, and you play around the same 2, 3, maybe 5 points of interest or hard cover or whatever.
Yeah, like
And
houses
that's
and
it.
stuff.
Yeah, because then there's nothing on the map for you to actually play around on some maps, and that I think that would be a stupid change, to be honest.
Yeah,
It just makes it even more stationary as it is.
for
And then
sure.
also you're not able with the current meta to retake as you usually do with just winning tanks and then rolling in. Because then you're so far away from hard cap most times. And then enemy tanks can just punish you from their HQ basically when you're pushing, because nothing is hard cover then anymore on your way, maybe 1 or 2 houses. But it's not like as it is now, where basically 80% of everything that is as high as a tank is hard cover. So actually moving in and retaking with tanks would be kind of different and difficult. So I think just leave it as it is right now with the bushes and don't touch that.
Okay. Well, thank you for your insight.
You're welcome.